Welcome on board another exciting episode of our podcast series, and we've had some real good laughs along the way. I'm sure we're going to today. Something a bit different because so far we've been looking at professionals working hard behind the scenes, production managers, tour managers, a couple of stars on stage. Today it's back to, what should we say, bass. The fans who create the excitement of the gig. The artists do the shows, the fans make the atmosphere. Who we got on board today, Russ?
Well, it is a bit different because without fans, there is no industry. I wouldn't have bought my first house. So fans are very important. I know it's really obvious, but quite often they get missed in what we're doing. But the two guys I could think of, because I'm on Facebook with them, and I was at school with them, and I've got Rudy Baxter and Chris Mansfield. Rudy I knew from secondary school onwards at the Stenning Grammar School in Sussex, and Chris I think I knew before. I seem to remember. Remind me, Chris, because you used to have the post office in Stenning, and we used to make like a big camp and fire those pellet guns at each other. I think it must have been like 10 or whatever.
Yeah, so it was a little bit early. I came down and just had the last year of junior school. I moved down to North London.
Yeah,
and we both went up to Stenning Grammar together.
Yeah. So, but what I discovered, it's really funny because when you leave school, and I remember my last day at Stenning Grammar School, which I hated, walking across the playground to get picked up by my mum, and looking back like in a movie and thinking, right, I'm now going to do everything I wanted to do in life. And I really remember it like it was yesterday. And then, obviously we went our separate ways. We've all had big lives. We're the same age, 65. And, we've done a lot. But what I've discovered on Facebook with you guys is that you really are serial rock and roll fans. And you, I mean, even so much on Thursday night, you were watching Level 42. Which I've got a story for you later on, because I worked a bit with Level 42 back in the day. But it's really good to have you on. You're probably wondering why I asked, but I think I've explained why. Because you're two people that I know, and you really love music. And I've seen, things that you've put on Facebook where you're just out at a pub enjoying a band, and that's what it's all about. And what I'm really interested to talk about is from the beginnings right the way through some of the bands we've got. I mean, the list of bands, Phil, is incredible that these two guys have seen, and
I'm looking forward to this. Yes.
Yeah, as we get older, we become a bit nostalgic. I don't know about you guys, but anyway, Phil, over to you. That's the intro. These are the two guys.
Thanks very much.
Looking forward to it.
Chris, we'll start with you, and very much sort of a format going through the two of you. So, Chris, starting with you, your very first band or very first live gig you went to, can you recall that and tell us who it was?
It's funny because as you get older, your memories kind of become a little bit more vague, or they become a bit adapted. Your kind of memory changes it to shape the memories, but there are some bits that really stand out. And my first ever gig was the original Genesis in 1973, which I saw at the Brighton Dome. And one of the things that stands out about that is I ended up going on my own as well. So my first concert at 14 years old, and I was on my own because the other person couldn't go. And that was my first experience of a really, any kind of live band. And of course, then we had Peter Gabriel was the lead singer with his headsets and his headdresses and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was just a great show. And I went out and bought the live album that reflected that concert, and I've still got the original ticket attached to that album sleeve as well.
So what was your feeling when you walked into the venue and saw massive people, and then the band kicked up with big sound system? Lighting then perhaps wasn't quite as elaborate as it evolved into, but what's your recall on that initial experience?
I think it was quite scary because I was quite young. Didn't know what I was going. In the same way that you get now, if you go to see a band now, very often the audience ranges from sort of 14 to 65. But then I was at the bottom end of it, and everyone seemed to be a lot older and knew more than I did, and I didn't know where I was going. Had to be shown to my seat and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
But the thing that always has stood out for me, and I think this is the one thing that Rudy and myself have slightly differently. I've always been into the tonal the sound of the music and the detail of that. And of course, being at the Dome, which I didn't realise at the time, the sound quality at the Dome is just exceptional. It's like a mini Albert Hall.
Yeah.
So I remember the quality of sitting back at the music and just going, wow, this is just a great experience, you know?
Yeah. And what was your experience with Genesis before that? Were you a fan of theirs? Were you listening to them on the radio or vinyl?
Do you know what? That's interesting. I don't remember much. I think I'd heard one or two tracks, but I knew that they were meant to be a really good band. And a couple of us said, "Oh, yeah, let's go and see this great rock band." I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest.
Okay, so you went for the experience rather than the
totally,
fan of the band. Yeah. Good.
What about
Excellent.
you, Rudy?
Well, the first I saw was 1974, was Rory Gallagher, and that was at the Dome. That was with Chris and Leslie Collins and Mark Alder from school, you might remember. We all went down there. Chris, I think we caught the bus down there, and Chris's dad used to pick us up and get us home. But but you mean I'd never really experienced anything like that before, sort of going in. You've been to sort of little thing, but my family didn't really go out to shows or anything like that. Anybody did that, so it was all quite intimidating. You know, it's all these great big hairy ass blokes and all that. You know what I mean? From that, you know, and you couldn't get a drink at the bar. Yeah, I mean, I was 14, so yeah, I mean, I wasn't even a very big 14, so yeah, I mean, there's no chance of getting a drink at the bar or anything like that. So yeah, you was just taking it all in, you know. You bought your program, and I remember buying a silk scarf and all that, which most probably still there, you know, like the old football scarves that used to be silk.
Yeah.
And a Rory Gallagher done in the old Irish green with the
So Rudy, that's a blast. Leslie Collins, I think we were always chasing the same girls, you and me. Anyway, moving on, because my missus probably wouldn't want to hear about all that. But anyway, so that was your first one, Rory Gallagher. Was Jerry McElvoy the bass player?
Yeah, Jerry McElvoy was bass player.
I worked with Jerry. I did some gigs with his own band around Essex, like later on, you know. Yeah, that was. But Rory Gallagher used to come on with his Vox AC30, put it on a chair, and go for it. You'd never see that now, would you?
No.
What?
I mean, Rory was a great showman, and he would always make sure the show happened. There was one gig he went to where I think Jerry McEvoy and the rest of the band had been held up. They were travelling separately. So Rory turned up, the audience was there waiting for him to come on the stage, and he didn't have a band. And he called into the audience if anybody could play the piano to his songs. And there was somebody from the audience that could play his set list, basically. And they put on a whole gig. It was just him and a piano and a pianist from the audience. An amazing gig.
That sounds like Stan Urban was there, wasn't it? Stan, who had on our podcast a few weeks ago, he'd pop up at weddings and take over on the piano.
Yeah.
Really? So that very first show for you, what about the sonic, the volume? Yeah, someone like Rory Gallagher.
Yeah, I'd never heard anything as loud as that before. Yeah, I mean, from the very first chord, I was hooked. That was it. Yeah, I mean, I think he opened up with "Messing with the Kid" as well as song it. So, and from that moment, I was hooked. And it was like there was no fancy. I mean, it's just lights and that. There was no real showman apart from his showmanship of his playing. You know, I mean, there was no gimmicks. It was just straight ahead sort of blues rock. You know, and I loved it. I lapped it up.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
What about you, Phil? What was your first band?
Yeah, let me set the scene. I grew up in Weston-super-Mare, you know, a bit of a quiet seaside town, apart from when the mods and rockers appeared later on in life and fought each other on the seafront bank holiday. We had the Winter Guns. That was our main venue. So you can expect Winter Guns. There's going to be sort of sedate afternoon tea parties and things like that, tea dances. But occasionally a venue would be used for a show. An independent producer would come in, or promoter. The rest of it was council. And it was a blues band, a Blodwyn Pig. Do you remember them? Yeah. Some of the guys went on to form Jethro Tull or work with Jethro Tull. So, and they were there supporting Curved Air. So I saw my first band I saw was Blodwyn Pig, and then Curved Air. And Curved Air, well, you know, the violinist, what was her name? Christina, the lead singer.
Sonia Christina, wasn't it?
Sonia Christina, that's it. Yeah, you see memories.
You are a pop god. Rudy's a pop god. He knows them.
So yeah, there we were. As someone said, hairy bikers there for the blues band Blodwyn Pig, and I didn't know who they were. It was just mates saying, "Let's go along." You know, there's this rock band on at Winter Guns, which was in shape, it was a dome, perhaps acoustically not as good as the Albert Hall or Brighton Dome, but yeah, and it was like a terrace going around, and people on the dance floor on the stage set up with massive amount of amplification of speakers. So that was an ear-blasting experience. The excitement of it was too much, and then Curved Air came on with Sonia Christina leaping around with a violin. That was a treat for the eyes. She was. So that was my first experience. Yeah. Russell,
Yeah,
what about you?
Yeah, mine was a little later than you guys. I got into it a bit later. I was really influenced by my older brother, you know, listening to King Crimson and the first year, the brilliant album. So, you know, I was into music, but I didn't actually go to my first proper gig until I went to, in 1977, was Bad Company at Earls Court. And I was just mesmerized when, if you remember the lineup, Simon Kirke, Mick Ralphs, Paul Rodgers, and Boz Burrell on bass. And during Bad Company, the song Bad Company, I was just mesmerized by the, you know, the scale down on the bass, and that just used to go over my head. But I've got a story linked to that where later on, so I was 17 then. Later on, when I was about 20, 21, as a laugh, I got into a band. And I totally can't play any musical instruments, so I had to be the singer. Awful singer. And anyway, I was the lead singer in this band, One Burning Heart, and we did gigs around Kent and London and stuff like that. And I was working at the time, I don't know if you, from some of the previous podcasts, I was working for a guy called John Henry who had rehearsal studios. So we used to get all the bands come in, you know, and all that stuff. And one day we had a little demo studio there, recording studio, little demo recording studio, and bands would come in and do stuff. And one day Mick Ralphs and Simon Kirke came in, and Stuart, the cheeky little, he was quite a young guy, but he was a brilliant engineer. He said, "Oh, we've got." I used to go in and look through the glass and see who was there, and it was Mick Ralphs and Simon Kirke. And anyway, he pressed the button on the speaker, and he said, "Hey guys," he said, "my mate Russ, he's a singer in a band." I was like, "No." and you know what they said? This is an absolute true story. They said, "Come on, let's give it." So I was cacking my pants. So I went in with Simon Kirke on drums and Mick Rouse on, and they've been used to Paul Rodgers, you know. and I mean, I got away with it, or they were very gracious, probably the latter. But yeah, so that, and I remember saying to Simon Kirke, I said, "You know what? You were the first band I ever saw." And he said, "Where was that?" I said, "Well, it was Earls Court this day." I said, "And I remember when you did your drum solo, when you lifted up your hands, you had all these bandages, and you were all." I said, "Oh, I remember that gig." He said that afternoon I was cleaning my Hoover out, and my stupid missus, she switched it on, and I cut all my hands up. So anyway, I digress.
What I want to know, no, don't run away. I want to know what, and don't escape this one. What did you actually sing?
I can't remember.
Come on.
Making out as well. I really can't remember. Yeah. But that was
funny you say about Bad Company. Bad Company are one of the few bands that I regret never having seen. Rudy did see. Yeah, I never got to see.
I went to see them when they got back together. Boz Burrell was no longer there. They had the I think they had another guitarist. That Mick Rouse was there. I think they had another guitarist who used to be in Heart, helped them along. I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong there, but Paul Rodgers' voice was a revelation to me. Yeah, I mean, he must have been well in his 60s, and it just sounded so pure. And I mean, it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I was not bowled over. It's one. I'd say it's one of the gigs where, you know, when you go, I didn't really have high expectation anymore of it. Yeah, I mean, I thought they would just be going through, but his voice was something else. Yeah, I mean, and that is at Wembley, where the sound is not always great at Wembley. No. But I remember his voice and remember thinking, "How
Wembley Arena,
yeah.
A great band. I love Bad Company. This is the point, Phil, where I totally lost my way, and you have to bring us back on.
Yeah, it's fine. I was going to say, I mean, I didn't give away my age when I saw my first band. You said you were 17. I was a lot older. I was about 35 or something. I was a late starter. No, not quite. But parents. So with you, Chris, what do your parents think when you started sneaking out to go and see hairy rock and roll bands and rock bands?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because we lived in Stenning, there were no buses after about 10 o'clock, and even if they were, they were unreliable. So my dad was really, really good, and he would always offer. We never had to beat him into submission. He would always offer to come and bring us home so we were safe and that kind of thing, So they're always very protective from that point of view. Having said that, they weren't really particularly supportive of the type of music. And I remember the very first album I actually bought was Alice Cooper, School's Out.
Oh yeah.
And I remember I had to hide it because I know they were totally anti Alice Cooper and snakes and babies with makeup and all that kind of stuff. So I had to hide the album. And you talk about hiding in plain sight. I literally stuck it in my dad's record collection. Knowing that he'd never find it there. And that was my first album, Alice Cooper. So they weren't particularly supportive of the kind of bands necessarily, but they would always make sure we got to and from the concerts in one piece.
Yeah. What about you, Rudy?
My mum, I had a fairly easy sort of. She didn't mind me going with Chris because she quite liked Chris. I thought he's a sort of upstanding sort of person. and as we got a lift home, I don't think she really knew and understood yet. I mean, what was going. She always gave me a lot of trust. I was the oldest in there, so I got a lot of trust. And she was a bit more protective when my brother started coming with us. Yeah, I mean my younger brother, which is only 18 months younger than us. But no, she was okay with it. There was no problem at all.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she really knew because she'd never been to anything like that. Yeah, I mean, one of my aunties, who part of the reason I got into music, she grew up with the Beatles and all that, so she'd come through with the Beatles and stuff like that. So she was quite supportive and sort of okay, yeah, they said there's no problem.
So that Rudy, that leads on quite nicely to what I wanted to ask you guys actually, because obviously at some stage you sort of linked up as a bit of a team. It's like, I like this music because it is a certain genre that you're into. Because personally, I'm very grateful. I actually like a whole range of music. I even go to my local jazz club here, and I love it. Anything except country and western. I'm sorry for the country and western.
Yes.
But when did this sort of, I don't really want to call it bromance, but I will. When did that sort of start where you thought, it must have been in your teens at school, no?
Yeah. For me, when we was in the same form at the third year, and Chris was going, we'd be talking about music. He was going to Genesis. And he had the spare ticket, but someone else was going with him.
It was Leslie Collins.
Oh,
she couldn't make it. Yeah.
Oh, you were chasing her as well.
Yeah.
I can't believe
I thought it was Susan Mosley.
No, Susan Mosley and Leslie Collins were inseparable, weren't they? No, it was Leslie was into her music. She was going to be going, and then she couldn't. Yeah. But I mean, we used to play football together as well.
Yeah.
So that was I think the football really was the kind of start of the
on the playground with a tennis ball.
Well, no, we both played for the football team at Sterling as well, didn't we?
So, school team, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think we would just, as you do, you're chatting about commonalities, things you both like, and music was one of those things, and yeah, off we went.
But what was the first? Sorry, Russ.
What was the first?
Before I met Chris, I knew how I got into music with a couple of lads who are older guys who are a couple of years older than me. They lived in Beeding. Guy called Pete Bartlett, he's now front of house for the Pretenders. He does a lot. I don't know if you've bumped into him or any time, but he pursued a career in music. I mean, I think he went around the 80s trying to make it in the music industry and ended up sort of producing. I think he produced a Therapy album at some point. You know what I mean? But he got me into music, and we'd be into David. He was into David Bowie. And that was when I got into things like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and all that. And I mean, I remember hearing Led Zeppelin 4 for the first time. He just got this. I just had like a little Dan set like mono record player, and he'd bought this stereo. This I forget what maker, but it was a proper stereo. And the moment he put on Led Zeppelin 4 and Black Dog come on, hey mama, oh yeah, fantastic.
Stereo separation and things.
Yeah, but when we went up into grammar school, when I got to the third year, he had left. Because he was 2 years above, so I kind of lost contact with him, and I kind of discovered Chris to sort of with same musical interest, but they were the ones who got me into that sort of music in the beginning, or I started listening with, you know.
And my dad had a really decent stereo system on it, so he used to sort of turn up at my place and just listen to music on a decent system and that, and we just got into music that way. And then
yeah, so you put the pellet guns away, and
pellet guns went away. Yeah.
So there is one thing I just wanted to ask you, actually. So there's two questions actually I've got. The first one is, what was the first gig you actually went to together?
That was Rory Gallagher.
Rory Gallagher, yeah, would have been Rory Gallagher, 74.
Okay, like you said. Okay, that. But the other thing, which my sister and brother-in-law, my older sister and brother-in-law, they're sort of serial gig goers. They're going to see Bob Dylan. I think he's coming soon as well. Yeah. But they go all the time. And a couple of years ago, quite a few years ago, they experienced this, and I wondered whether you have you seen a support band that went on to be famous? You know, they were nothing when you saw them and you thought, oh, they're a bit of all right. Because my sister, she was telling me the other day, she was saying, we watched in Brighton Talking Heads back in the day, and supporting them was Dire Straits. And, and they thought, oh, they're a bit of all right, and they, you know, went on to be quite famous.
The only band I can think of that I actually went out and bought an album of was Heavy Metal Kids, and they were supporting Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
So but they didn't really go on to be massive, but they were pretty big. And then, of course, the lead singer Gary. Oh God, where did he go?
Gary Holton.
Gary Holton.
He was in Evita's Own Pet.
He ended up as an actor on Evita.
Yeah. I've seen several that have gone on. I saw AC/DC and Def Leppard was supporting them. That was in '79. That was one of the last gigs that, the last tour that Bon Scott done with them. And I had great tickets for that and all. We were right down the front with thing. The story about Angus, like Angus is all over the stage. His guitar strap come off. And he's there, and he's roadie, and he's down there doing what he's doing. I can't most of it. And he's nodding his head, and his legs are going, and the roadie's down behind him trying to get his guitar strap done up, and the sweat is absolutely pouring off him. And then suddenly, when he got it done up, he touched it, and he just gone, and he's gone all over the place. He's over the other side of the stage. But I've never ever seen some sweat come off anybody so much. It was just going everywhere, And that's when they also in them days. Bon Scott used to get him when they done the walk around. He used to come through the crowd. Come through the crowd with him. He's a tiny fella.
Do you remember? Because I worked with a band called Rose Tattoo.
Oh yeah, great band.
Supported Australian band who supported AC/DC. I didn't do that bit. I did some other gigs with them. But they went on to support AC/DC on one of their tours. But Angry Anderson was the lead singer, and I don't know if you ever saw them live, but at the end of their set, he used to strangle himself with the cord and pass out, and the roadies used to carry him off.
I never seen them live. I did.
Crazy.
Yeah, because he ended up having a ballad, didn't he, as a hit? They used to play quite hard rock and roll, and he done the ballad for Neighbours, didn't he, for Charlene's wedding or something stupid on the thing. And he had this hit. His biggest hit was a ballad. Was an actual toppy ballad.
Yeah,
they were
characters. They were characters.
Yeah, the other great support band I've seen, I saw Bon Jovi when they were starting out. They were on tour with Kiss, and that was a strange one and all because Kiss were on in Brighton, and just me and my brother. It was like just a Sunday afternoon. Kiss were on in Brighton. There's still tickets available. Let's go down, and we went down and we saw Bon Jovi. They were the better. They were a good band. They were even good then. And I see them several times after. We went on to see them several times after.
I saw King Crimson supporting Wishbone Ash. That was
King Crimson. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we've in some of the other podcasts we're mentioning Wishbone Ash, and we were also mentioning Bon Jovi as well, because the band I used to manage supported Bon Jovi. So,
Wishbone Ash. In one of their formats, still play at the rope tackle in Shoreham.
Oh, really?
Really? Yeah.
Steve Upton, the drummer.
No, he's gone. It's Andy Powell, the guitarist, and there's a sort of they split. It was quite a bad split when they done, and they formed two bands. and I think they argued over the name for a long time. And I think Andy Pell got the name. And Martin Turner, who's the singer, he actually tours and all, and I think he tours an evening with Wishbone Ash. I think he has to call it or something now. Or Martin Turner's. It used to be Martin Turner's Wishbone Ash. Wishbone Ash. I think they still make albums. The Andy Pell version is they still making music.
Yeah.
I've been racking my brain regarding support acts I've seen, but the closest I've got to that is a band we had in Western-super-Mare. They used to do pubs called Fumble. They were rock and roll. They used to dress up the whole lot, and they turned up to be Bowie's warm-up band when he was on tour. And I think one of the guitarists from Fumble, Les Henley, went on to become his touring guitarist for a while, Bowie. So that's the nearest I've got to a support band getting into the big times.
I have to ask you guys, with all this list, and we'll go through the list at one point because it is quite impressive. Have you got it in front of you, Phil? Obviously, from a fan's perspective, did you ever, get to actually meet or bump into any of your heroes, or have you got any stories where that happened, or didn't that really happen? You just enjoyed going to watch these guys?
Start with Chris, eh?
Not really. I think the nearest I got would have been like Gary Moore. We randomly bumped into him, sort of thing, playing at the Half Brick pub in Worthing. We went to see a guy they called Buddy Whittington, who was a Canadian guitarist, I believe, blues guitarist. And it's a very small kind of venue, and you're only sort of 3 or 4 feet from the artist on the stage. And there was sort of this bit of kerfuffle going on behind the speaker systems when there was a break. And then he just introduced Gary Moore. Gary Moore would come walking in through the door at the back and set himself up, and you sort of stood there with Gary Moore 3 or 4 feet in front of you. Go, this is just, where did that come from?
I think we did have a nod across the bar. He was across the bar, the other side of the bar. So Gary, hello.
But as near as we got, yeah.
Gary is actually quite a shy guy. When I was working at John Henry's, this place, I got a call. I got asked into the office, and they said, "Can you go and pick up Gary Moore? He's in his house. He needs just take my estate car. He's got an amp and he's doing this studio thing." So I went and picked him up, and I got the impression he's really shy. And as it turned out, in the end, even though we never spoke a word in the car all the way to the studio, and then I just basically, I was a babysitter in this studio. He was doing a gig with, he was doing a session with Ian Pace, the drummer of Deep Purple.
Yeah.
And I'd set up Ian Pace kit, which was very complex. I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, Gary never said a word. But then he started to do some rehearsals for a gig, and he actually asked for me, which was strange because as in one of the previous podcasts I mentioned, I was one of the worst guitar tech. Well, Steve Martin and I were having a competition who was actually the worst guitar tech, and I can assure you I was. But I think he got quite. I never worked with him after that because during the rehearsal he was so loud that I used to wear tractor earmuffs. So I'd be rolling up cables and tidying stuff up, and I'd be walking around with these big tractor earmuffs on, and I think he got quite offended. But he was so loud, it was incredible. But what a guitarist!
Oh, brilliant! Yeah. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
and very shy, very quiet guy. Even though apparently that scar that he had, it was some fight he got into, but it didn't seem like in his character, because what I knew about him, he was really quiet. But yeah, that was my experience with Gary Moore. But what a guitarist! Oof.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, I've never really spoken to him. I had a chat with Martin Turner outside of the Brighton Centre there. He was supporting Uriah Heep, who but it wasn't actually in the Brighton Centre. It's in the East Wing. They got a little side room. We thought it's in the Brighton Centre. When we turned up for the gig, we went to the Brighton Centre to the front. It's bloody cancelled, whatever. So no, it's round the back. And we went back, and during the interval, he was in there. We was chatting to him. He was like, because he comes from Devon, so he kind of had that sort of West Country sort of drawl a little bit. You know what I mean? I was quite surprised. It wasn't how I expected him to sound. And yeah, he was chatting. He was on about. He was talking about redoing Argos, the album, re-recording it, which was quite the fad there in that time. So he would get some bits off of that. But yeah, he was quite chatty. He was sitting outside having a smoke. But
who was talking about Uriah Heep? Who was the bass player for Uriah Heep?
Well, they've had several. Yeah. It's Gary Fade. Trevor Boulder was there.
Trevor Boulder.
He played that gig. He played that because I remember having a conversation with you, Russ, on Facebook, and you said, because he used to call him sideburns or something, curtains.
No, they used to call him curtains because he had that. Yeah.
But he replaced Gary Thane, who infamously electrocuted himself.
He was several down the road from Gary Thane.
Gary Thane was the original bass player, and he shocked himself on stage.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Wow. Gary Thane. Yeah, he died. I think he died of heroin overdose. Actually, Gary Thane. And then that John Wetton played with them after that.
Yeah.
And then Trevor Boulder. But I tell you, I remember the gig because me and my brother were there, and we kind of inherited. Uriah Heep had been going maybe 8 or 9 years before we even got into him, so we would have been 15. So there was a lot older fans there, and they had one stage where they tried to get all the they said, "Oh, we just done a gig, and we get all the girls up on stage," and we get all the girls up on stage, and they said in Venezuela we had 20 up here as a record. And I was looking around, and I was there's people with Zimmer frames and walkie sticks. I thought it's going to be a long number if they're going to get them all up on stage before all that. And it was like, because it was standing, there was lots of people around the edge. Yeah, and it was the first time where I went to a gig, and you kind of realise, actually, I'm not that. We're getting on a bit now.
Wasn't it Uriah? Did we see him at Wembley and you won the tickets?
Yeah, we saw him. Yeah, I won the tickets at Wembley.
We're almost front.
Out of Sounds. Yeah. Out of Sounds magazine.
Yeah.
I won 2 tickets.
Going back to people, I've suddenly remembered I did meet Kenny Jones, the Who drummer.
Yeah.
And I think I'm probably trying to bury that in my memory because it was only 2 or 3 years ago. He was a guest of honour at an event at the Grand in Brighton. And I went over to introduce myself. He's ever so small, very, very short. And it was a classic example of how to make a complete twat of yourself. So I've gone over and introduced myself and chatted. He's been a fan of the Who for years, and all this kind of stuff. I said, he said, "Did you ever see me play?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw the Who, and you were playing at Hyde Park, a big old concert there. You did Quadrophenia right away." And he listened to me waxing lyrical about this amazing concert at Hyde Park. He said, "Yeah, that was Zach Starkey."
Oh no! Oh dear!
Oh dear! Swallow me up.
Yeah. Oops.
I was working on a job recently, actually, where you couldn't park on site, and they rented Kenny Jones. He's got a polo club out near Ewhurst thing. He was trying to, I think they were trying to sell it, but he had this polo club, and they used to allow a park. And I see him a couple of times there messing around on a little machine, digging up bowls and all that, and repairing the road on his polo club. But he's heavily into polo.
I don't know whether you heard the first podcast we did with Jake Duncan and Steve Martin, but Jake Duncan, 55 years as a tour manager, worked with everybody. Yeah. And he was saying, I remember he called me once and I was chatting to him, or I called him, I can't remember. And he said, I just finished the Who. And it was not long ago. It was near the end of his career when the Who sort of reformed. And he said, what a relief, he said, to work with a band who are young, who are older than me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's not gigging anymore, but that was a good one.
About age though, Russ, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I find it really weird because as individuals, we don't feel we're getting any older, do we?
No.
It's kind of weird watching these people that were our kind of heroes. And they were very young. When we first saw Zeppelin, they were only sort of early 20s. We first saw Def Leppard, they're in their late teens, And to sit here now and see them the age they are, it's almost like they've grown up and got older than we are. You're watching all these old farts going on stage. You go, "My God, we're the same age," It's really weird.
Yeah. But you, my son always tells me that I've got the mental age of 15, which I'll accept. I'll get that.
That's all right.
We'll accept that. But you mentioned one band there, which I really have to intervene on. Did you both see Led Zeppelin together?
Yeah, twice.
Tell us about that, because that's iconic. You guys watching that?
Yeah, this is one of those
What's it?
conversations. This conversation kind of comes up routinely, quite regularly, because the memories you got of it, they've never left us really. The first one was 75 at Earls Court when they came back to the UK, and they did 5 nights, I think, at Earls Court. And one of the things that stands out for me is that we stood there for hours and hours and hours trying to queue up for tickets. And this was when Virgin Records was the shop on the corner of Queen's Road and North Street in Brighton, which is now Boots. And we didn't get tickets, but just as we were getting to the doors, they'd sold out. And cutting a long story short, very, very disappointed. We were lucky to buy a couple of tickets off a mate of ours, Andy Maynard, and he had 2 other tickets, which he were happy to sell to us for 5 times the face value. And we just snapped it up. We didn't. But the price of the ticket face value was £1 in 1975. And the thing about those tickets were they actually had restricted. I still got the ticket on my phone. I could probably show it up on the screen here. It had restricted view, and we thought, oh, what the hell? We're going to be at Earls Court. We're going to see Led Zeppelin. Brilliant. We paid £5 for each ticket, and we tipped up at Earls Court, and we're looking for this restricted view, thinking we're going to be behind a pillar. And we found the 2 seats in the block where we thought we were, and there was a pillar there, but we thought, oh, what the hell? We're still here. It's great. We can still see the stage. It'll be all right. And we're here for the sound anyway, you know. And then these 2 guys come wandering over us and told us we were sitting in the wrong seats. So we swapped seats, went back and found the ones we were meant to be in. No restriction whatsoever. Brilliant.
Oh, great.
Excellent. Brilliant. Really good.
So
Yeah,
what about
that?
What about the band though? I mean, John Bonham was there.
Oh yeah.
They opened up with rock and roll.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much the set that they played on that album. Yeah, and that's the first time I think when they started using video screens. I don't think video screens have been used too much before then. They had the video screens up there, and I remember sort of going. I mean, I would have been 14, 15 still then. Going in, and Earls Court seemed absolutely huge, massive. I mean, there's massive people going. I mean, it was not a great venue, I don't think, for sound, but it sounded.
It was a concrete box,
I mean, to us, it was brilliant. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
The other memory I got, I mean, the actual memory of getting the tickets, but I sort of a little bit different to Chris, because I remember the 2 guys. Once we'd walked away from the ticket office, we was walking back towards Churchill Square, and these 2 guys come shouting, shouting up the road. Yeah, I mean, one had a scar on his face. What's going on here? Do you know what I mean? They're dot my, and they come up. I thought, oh, it's going to be a ruck. Yeah, I mean, they said, oh, do you want to buy tickets? And they said, yeah, Chris and his mate had the money. They paid for the tickets, and luckily Chris's mate got another ticket, so I ended up with his ticket to actually go, because I wouldn't have actually been going. But yeah, it was
brilliant.
It was the other memory of that is the night that we went there. I mean, the show. Yeah, I mean, I think it was almost like a 30-minute drum solo. It seemed very long. I'm not quite sure that I could sit through. It was overindulgent. It would have been nowadays. I'd see it as a little bit overindulgent, the solos and whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's like a 30-minute drum solo, and the keyboard solo was all very long. It was about 2.5, 3 hours long. The show, no support band.
No.
I remember Kid Jensen introduced them at the start and all that. But afterwards, when we were getting out, the next day was the England-Scotland football match. So there was loads of Scottish, and the Tube were going on strike at midnight because the time before when Scotland played, so they pushed somebody on the track. So everybody was trying to get back to the station, and it was the night. And of course, you get to the station, there's all these Scottish football fans walking around. You mean there was ambulances at the Tube station bringing people out? It was chaos. Yeah, I mean, you know what it's like in the 70s with the football.
And the Tubes were absolutely rammed with people either coming back from Earls Court with their Led Zeppelin t-shirts or Scottish football fans. It was just bonkers, really mental.
And we
mayhem with the Tubes, and no doubt Led Zeppelin got the blame for all that, I suppose.
Yeah, probably.
Well, they had what they called the Zeppelin Express supposed to be running.
That's right.
I think they actually run Tubes in especially for it. I think they'd never quite done anything quite as big as that before, with so many shows. You know what I mean? All the time in there. Yeah, and I think we were the Friday night. I think it started on the Tuesday night, went right through, didn't it? To 5 nights. Yeah.
I was watching just a couple of weeks ago on a flight the movie Becoming Led Zeppelin. What an
Yeah.
insightful
yeah.
movie that is. Superb, absolutely superb.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really good from early days in the Midlands right through. Yeah, fantastic. And
What about? I mean, now that's sort of at the beginning, but going right the way through now. Did both of you go to Oasis recently?
No.
That was just me. I'm very fortunate. My daughter, Christ, she's now 35, for heaven's sake. So she worked for Noel Gallagher's record label, Ignition Records.
Oh wow.
Okay.
So through there, I think she gets certain benefits and what have you. But 6 of us managed to get up to Wembley. The 6 of us managed to get up there and saw them.
So my serious question is,
serious from you, Russell.
no,
Hey, first one.
What was all the hype justified?
Do you know what? It's really interesting because Oasis currently and what they've done is very, very good, very high level, very good quality. They've been around for a number of years. The big hype about the getting back together again and the concerts were all brilliant. The playlist was brilliant. And people have asked me that, oh, it must have been fantastic. And there's always a part of me that says, yeah, but I've seen Led Zeppelin twice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So for most people, that would be an amazing thing. For me, it wasn't quite so much.
Yeah.
Because it was just another big band of all the huge list of bands we've seen. And if anything, I felt being a bit more into, as I said earlier, the tonal qualities of it. Richard Ashcroft, who was a support, he did fundamentally an hour's greatest hits of the Verve. The sound quality was better.
Yeah.
And Oasis always like to have that bit of extra distortion. So towards the end of the gig, it was starting to hurt. You going back to your tractor ear defenders, I could have done with a pair of earplugs. So the enjoyment of it overall was it was a great experience, but I've been to better gigs.
What was the audience like? What was the audience reaction?
Oh yeah, they absolutely loved it. The interesting thing was, and we all say this, they've done an amazing thing because having teamed up with the Adidas 3 Stripes bit.
Oh right.
I've never seen so many people at one concert wearing so much matching merchandise. They've done an amazing job on the merchandise. Everyone had T-shirts with 3 stripes on it. The band with this. I don't know whether you saw the link with the branding. So Adidas have got their own branding that says the brand with 3 stripes. So Oasis changed that to being the band with 3 stripes. Very simple.
Very good. Very clever,
but continuing with the branding, brilliant.
So it sounds to me very, very commercialized in terms of the branding aspect. So
it was, yeah.
Not in the essence of a pure rock and roll band who are sort of anti-establishment and rebels for the cause.
Yeah, very much so.
That.
And of course, they also did a big tribute to Ricky Hatton because he was a
great
Man City fan, as is Noel Gallagher. So they did a big old tribute to Ricky Hatton as well. So they obviously got that kind of emotional tie as well. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, they were a brilliant band. There's no taking that away.
Yeah.
But then when you sort of join that into the huge long list that we created, the bands we've seen, another good band,
Yeah, another good band. Just another good band, nothing more.
I mean, another good band. Sorry, Phil. There's so many bands on their list I want to ask them about. I mean, Yes, one of my I love that Yes album. When did you see Yes?
I didn't. Right, let's just not even talk about it. That is my greatest regret for music. I didn't get to see him and I had a ticket. So stupid.
I went to it was 1977. In 1977, it is the Going for the One tour. They're just promoting that album. I think Rick Wakeman was still there. Rick Wakeman was there, and Alan White. And it was a fantastic. Donovan, there's another one. Donovan was the support act for him. He was that's more nostalgic rather than up and coming. He would be he was the support from. That was a fantastic light show, and they used the pictures and the screens very well. Yeah, great. It was a great show. Yeah.
The interesting thing about the Yes thing is again memory suddenly recovering. I have actually met Rick Wakeman. And that was a really weird thing. That was through a work thing. A few of us in a bar after a particular event we'd been to, and we were just chatting about things that we enjoyed doing, and music came up. And one guy says to me, "So, you know, which are great bands. And I was talking about the various bands, including Yes. And he said, what's special about Yes? And I said, well, obviously, you know, the vocals of John Anderson, the guitaring of Steve Howe, Rick Wakeman. I mean, he's a god of keyboards. And this guy was waxing lyrical about Rick Wakeman. And he said to me, yeah, would you like to meet him one day? I said, oh, yeah, I'd love to have a chat with Rick Wakeman. It'd be awesome. He said, no, really, would you like to meet him? Well, yeah, he's my next door neighbour. Right. And he arranged for me to meet up with Rick Wakeman at a gig he did when he was doing his an intimate evening with Rick Wakeman, and he was just doing gigs, just him and a piano, and he was playing at Buxton in Derbyshire. And I went up there and he arranged us to meet and have a chat afterwards. So that was really good. Yeah.
A little aside, if you don't mind me stepping in, regarding John Anderson from Yes. I was working for a radio station in Vienna, government English language radio station, and we used to have guests coming in for the show, arranged by the producer, and I walked into the studio at 6:45 for the show, starting at 7. I said, "Oh, we got lined up today. We've got blah blah blah. We've got Anderson and Squire coming in." I went, "Well, what are they? They, you know, sound like a legal team." And this producer said, "I don't know." So I said, "What's their full name?" "Oh, Chris Squire and John Anderson." I fell off my chair. They didn't even know, and they were just doing a tour of radio stations to promote. I don't know. I suppose it was it was a double album. They weren't doing a tour, but they were doing a record promotion tour.
But you know, they during my time at John Henry's in the rehearsal studio, and loads of bands used to come in and go. Yes, sort of morphed into. They split up, I guess, and they morphed into a band called Cinema with a guy called Trevor Rabin, who's a good songwriter.
Yeah.
And they were rehearsing there at Cinema, and a bit of history, I guess, a bit of rock history, which I just thought about. I remember I was working there, and all of a sudden there was a big hush hush. They were like, "Don't tell anyone," but John Anderson's singing in rehearsal studio 1, and there's a rumor that Yes are going to get back together again. And then all of a sudden, Trevor Horn turns up, and of course that was their new style. Yes, and they went into Abbey Road Studios, and Trevor, I remember, I got feedback because we used to take gear and supply these guys, and is it Chris White, the drummer?
Alan White,
the drummer. He was complaining because Trevor Rabin was trying to get him to do a rim shot, and he'd never done a rim shot in his life for Owners of a Lonely Heart, or whatever that track is. Yeah, so yeah, there's a bit of rock history, but we weren't allowed to tell anyone. It was all a bit hush hush because it wasn't signed and sealed, but that was the rumor. But Chris Squire, I remember a lot. He was quite a decent chap, the bass player, wasn't he?
Yeah, very great. They used to have good harmonies and all, didn't they? He was never given enough credit for the harmonies that he done, and with his vocals that he added to their vocals and their sound all the time. Great bass player. He had that Rickenbacker sound and all, didn't it? That Rickenbacker.
Yeah, exactly. I used to stick my head in the door and listen to them because they were just great musicians.
Yeah.
But a lot of those bands, you know, there were a lot. I don't know if you remember, there were smaller bands of that ilk who, I mean, I'm not comparing them to Yes, but they were going around around the UK circuit, Praying Mantis, Grand Prix, these sort of bands.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
And they were going around, and they used to come and rehearse there. They were good bands, but they didn't quite have the final kick over into, you know,
that's an interesting part when you see good bands, bands that you think make it, and it's either bad management or just bad luck. Sometimes I think you think, why are these bands not bigger? I mean, I see that a lot now.
Yeah,
there's a lot of bands I see that. I think, why are these bands not bigger? I mean, I don't know if it's management or I mean, just bad luck really. Wrong place, wrong time. Sometimes you've got to be in the right place, right time, maybe.
So, question on, you say bands these days, are you guys going out seeing newcomers, or are you sticking with, what should we say, the heritage bands that have been around for decades?
A mixture. I was going to say a mixture, because obviously some of the bands that we used to see are still going in various formations and that, so where we can catch them. But I think for me, I've become a little bit more choosy now. I won't go and see a band just because they were a big band, because I'm rather worried about them not being the same sort of quality.
Yeah.
And I deliberately didn't try to go and see Zeppelin when they did Celebration Day, because I was fearful that it wouldn't be as good. And again, another massive regret because the sound quality was fantastic. You know, the quality of the album was really good. And the trouble is, there aren't many new bands coming up, but when we do come across one that we think would be a good band, I mean, very often, you know, they might tip up at the rope tackle or whatever, then we will try and go and see them. But there aren't that many coming through now, and I think this is one of the big differences between nowadays. You know, you get this question of why were the bands back in the 70s, you know, why so big and there's not big bands coming? It's because the bands then were better. They were better bands because they had to survive by playing live.
Yeah.
They would go.
Well, that's the other issue. There aren't so many live venues, especially for starting off. You know,
well, no,
pubs can't afford bands these days, can they? The overheads are too great.
No, and then the big ones go to
well.
stadiums, and the stadiums aren't as good quality. But they get, I mean, trying to get out with Oasis was absolutely insane. But 80,000 people all trying to get on the same tube train, basically.
Yeah,
car park, just absolutely bonkers.
Mm.
And the sound quality of them isn't as good either. But we just don't seem to have the bands coming through because the routine always used to be they would disappear into a studio, they would work for X amount of time, release an album, and then the only way
get out and tour,
album was by touring.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. What about you, Rudy?
I kind of would disagree with that a little bit. You mean I like to see when I say new bands, I mean there's bands that are they're mostly 10 years old now. That bands that I liked. I mean, it started coming up in a rock band called The Answer. You mean a band called Rival Sons? They're pretty much retro, playing, and maybe 20, 30 years ago would have been big bands. But I find these bands get to a certain stage now. They're in the clubs. And they maybe get to a theatre, but stepping up to that next stage, it seems hard. They don't seem to be able to get out of the like thousand seater or 1,000 seater venues into the bigger thing. And I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think they just need one record. You know what I mean? Like bands like Leonard Skinner. I mean, I went to see Leonard Skinner recently, and the crowd were pretty fair. And it was two songs, Free Bird and Sweet Home Alabama. When they come on, the crowd goes nuts. So a lot of the crowd, because there was a younger crowd there, only knew those songs. So if you get a song like, if you have a hit single, it sort of gets you, and people start to come and see you maybe then, and you develop your fan base from then. You know what I mean? But yeah, there are some good bands. There are good bands out there. There are some great bands out there that still play. You know what I mean? I like a band called the Blue Pills, who are on with Rival Sons they've got a girl singer. They're Swedish. They're pretty good. And there's another band called the Struts, who are very much like Queen and sort of that kind of poppy rock band.
Yeah.
Who are sort of making inroads in America, but not too much over here. Do you know what I mean? I don't think, I mean.
I think this point, Rudy's been brought up in a previous podcast with Jake and Steve Martin. This came up, Phil, if you remember, where you asked them what's the main difference between then and now, a few things about the live aspect. And they were saying one of the things that's changed, the whole thing is too many screens where the people are looking at the screens and they're not looking at the band anymore. And I can see that is as a positive and a negative. Back last April, I think it was, my missus and I and some friends, we went to Abu Dhabi to watch Coldplay, and that was one of those things. I mean, I like all their tunes and stuff, but I wanted to go and see the production, you know, and they're a really polished act. There's no two ways about it, but there's a lot of backing tracks and stuff supporting them and loads of screens, and you end up watching the screens, you know. They do try the same thing as Bryan Adams. I've worked with Bryan Adams. You went to see them.
Yeah.
Where for the encore, he has the stage at the back, you know, where they come on and they do a similar thing. So the people in the cheap seats get to see the artist a bit. But I think that is a killer now. If there is a negative.
Oasis was like that. I mean, we have pretty good seats. We were only around the area of the halfway line of where the football pitch is at Wembley.
Yeah.
So we had a pretty good view, and we were high enough up to have a good view down the stage. But even from there, the stage was really, really small. That, as you rightly say, there's no point watching the stage because you can't really see it. So you're focusing entirely on the massive screens that were behind, and it's a bit like going to a massive cinema, really. And then occasionally you sort of remember there is a band down on the stage, like, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like sometimes that the music is becoming a soundtrack to the light show, or rather than actual
There is that, yeah, sure, yeah.
coming out. But there are some bands, yeah. I mean, there's some need. I went to see Kiss when they had no makeup, and the light show was not fair, and they want half. You mean they depend on their light show, and it's all about the explosions and whatever. And some bands rely on it. Whereas if you go and see Bruce Springsteen, Bruce Springsteen is quite happy just to play with just bare minimum lights or whatever. There's no over the top light show, I don't think there. Yeah, I mean,
No, he has the screens to enhance the viewing aspect.
yeah, yeah. To invite, they're mainly of the band. They're not.
Yeah, not for effects or atmosphere.
But that's part of the reason why I kind of stay away from stadium gigs. I shy away from them. I mean, for Christmas last year, my kids bought me tickets. Me and my brother tickets to go and see Iron Maiden at the Olympic Stadium in London, West Ham's football ground there. And I always kind of think when we were right, not at the back, we was in one corner up, quite high up. But like Chris says, you mean if you look at the people, you wouldn't be able to reckon. It could be anybody on the stage.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
and you depend on the pictures of whatever. And they used the graphics quite well. I was considering I'd not been to a stadium gig since 2000 when we went to see Aerosmith and all that at the old Wembley before the old Wembley shut.
The old Wembley, yeah.
And the sound was brilliant. The sound was brilliant, but I always get the feeling like I'm outside looking in rather than actually in the gig. Yeah, I mean, when you're on that side, but it's like looking in the window at it. Yeah, I mean, you mean for me that's not as enjoyable. I mean, it was great sound. It was a great gig, but you don't really feel it. You don't feel the need to either get up and dance or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you're a spectator really rather than participating. Yeah, I mean,
so.
I saw Springsteen in Italy on 2 occasions. First time was in Rome at the famous Maximus Circus. It was the old horse racing amphitheatre.
Yeah.
And we managed to get into the pit at the front. So they had some sort of system. Maybe wait 2 days beforehand, you get a number. Eventually, you work your way through. That was an amazing experience, being in the pit, yards away from the band. Second time was 2 years ago, again in Milan, in Italy, in Milan, at the racetrack. And it was enormous. We were way back, and you could only, as you say, see the band on the big screens. It was sort of like little ants on the stage, and different atmosphere completely. Because as you said, really, like you're looking in, you're not part of it.
You don't feel part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, when we started this off saying that the fans are key to the actual overall experience. You know,
they are. Yeah,
I think one of the best gigs we went to. Wasn't in terms of size, quality, or massive light show. It was when Deep Purple joined forces with Steve Morse, and they were about to go on tour for the first time, I think it was, with this new lineup. And we learned through Mark Alder that they were doing a warm-up gig at the Half Moon in Putney.
Wow!
It only holds 300 people.
Wow!
So we saw Deep Purple live do a full concert in the back room of a pub in London.
Brilliant. Outstanding. Yeah. Outstanding.
Yeah.
Talking about these bands, obviously it's there is a theme with the sort of music that you guys like, of the heavier persuasion.
Well, to be honest, Russ, that is you mean that list sort of betrays. I mean, it's not really. I do listen to a lot of other genres. They're mainly the bands that I'll go to see them. I mean, I have seen a lot of other people. I mean, I've been with other people that are not always rock, you know what I mean? But I mean, I love all sorts of music, to be honest. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
I'll tell you a story. My wife is a big Osmonds fan from way back, and
guilty secret coming up.
She had a group, and they were going up to see the Osmonds, and they had hired a minibus and whatever. And the girl who was driving the minibus, she couldn't make it. She was ill for one time, and then my wife, not confident to drive a minibus or whatever. So I said, no, I'll do it. I'll take her up, because I used to do that when my daughter liked Westlife, and I used to take her and my wife to see Westlife, and I'd sit outside or go and have a meal somewhere, and they'd go and see the concert, and then I'd drive them home. And they were going to this Osmonds thing, and Wembley had just changed then. It was after Wembley was being built, the new Wembley. So they used to have toilets in the car park there, so I could always go back and I could have a saying, I could go to the toilet. And I thought, well, that's all gone, and there's a spare ticket, I might as well go in. I might as well go in. So I went in.
Oh, sorry, we'll go with it. Don't worry.
Yeah, and there was, I mean, it was massive. It was, I would say, 98% women, but it was like the heyday. It was like the heyday of the Osmonds. The noise was unbelievable. There was like, I had it down, and they were all like, they would have been what 40-something, 40+ age women. You know what I mean? All of these premenopausal women, but the noise was unbelievable. And they opened up. I like one track by the Osmonds. That's Crazy. It's quite a good. They opened with that, and I thought, that's my evening. That's my evening over now. You know what I mean? That's done. And I thought they can't possibly do Long-Haired Lover from Liverpool. And Jimmy Osmond done it, and he rocked it. He absolutely rocked it. And the production was brilliant, and they were so slick. And it was not, you know what I mean? I kind of, in sort of some guilty pleasure way, enjoyed it. I think, you know what I mean? It's
hordes of screaming women. That's what it's all about.
And that goes sometimes when things are you don't expect too much. And that's always the best gigs that you go to when you don't really know and it turns out into something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And talking of screaming women, Russell, you've had that experience with Tom Jones.
Oh yeah, Jones.
Good old Tom. Yeah, I did I worked with Tom a few times. I did when he came back from America when he was about 40-ish. He big star in America doing Vegas. He came back and we started at what's it called? Cardiff, St David's Hall in Cardiff. That was the first Hall.
Yeah.
And I remember standing at the side of the stage and Tom came along and he had his radio mic and he started singing. I can't remember the song of it. You are all I, something like that. But he was belting it out. And I was thinking, my first thought was, wow, you could be a really good heavy metal singer. He's
got a great voice, Tom Jones. Blues voice, great blues. He done an album with Jules Holland, a blues thing, and absolutely fantastic.
Unbelievable.
You did a gig with him in Dubai, and he came on and he did Lenny Kravitz's "Are You Going My Way?" That was so powerful. That was stunning in the car park, wasn't it? Yeah, it was really.
We saw Lenny Kravitz.
I mean, I'll stop, guys. I'll just let you into Phil has interviewed everybody, every man and his dog. Really. He's even interviewed the Orange Mussolini.
Yeah. He sang a song or two.
I mean, you must have interviewed Tom Jones, surely.
Yeah, a couple of times on the telephone. There was another time he was doing a gig in Dubai. Traffic was bad. He's delayed seriously. He got a boat across the creek to where the venue was, which was a great way of getting there. And I said, Tom, what about an interview? He goes, no time. So a colleague of mine was very good at doing impersonations. So he did a quick 30-second chat with him, impersonating Tom Jones. And then I did that
Rob Brydon. Wasn't Rob Brydon, was it? He does a good Tom Jones.
Yeah. No, this guy was, what was that? It wasn't even Welsh. And then we did that one with Engelbert Humperdinck, Russ.
I promoted Engelbert Humperdinck in the golf, and I set up an interview with Phil with Engelbert and from LA, and when his son was managing him, like Tom Jones's son managed him, Mark. Engelbert's son managed him, and when they arrived in the Gulf and we were doing this tour, he admitted to me that actually, I said, thanks for the interview, that was really good, help promote the show and stuff. He said, oh well, actually I have to let you into a secret because I feel quite my dad was not available. He said, so it was me. And so I told Phil, and he went, you bastard.
Yeah, exactly. It worked. It's the magic of radio. There's no visuals. Had no idea, and he was very, very convincing. It was unbelievable. But
it worked.
Yeah.
I just wanted to just change the mood a little bit because what I was getting to, Rudy, and we went off on a tangent, which we usually do. Obviously, you've watched a lot of great guitarists, and in the rock and roll sense, guitarists. Who would you class as the most iconic guitarist you've ever seen live?
Well, iconic. If you're saying iconic, most probably it's got to be Jimmy Page because Richie Blackmore, very good. But if I was thinking about this the other day, and I sort of who you mean as much as I love Jimmy, my brother would kill me. But I think, I mean, I would go with Rory Gallagher as to see as what he's become, and I mean the people he's influenced and say he's an influence, who he influenced. I mean, and I saw him. I must have seen him getting on 10 times maybe, and mean he never done a bad show, even at the end of his, when he was quite ill. Well, people didn't know he was ill, he putting on a bit of weight, but he's still done a great show all the time. I mean, and I mean I would go with Rory.
Where are you, Chris?
I think I'd probably stick with Jimmy Page if I had to pick one, because he was experimental, he's very free-flowing, he's very creative. Hardly a standard chord in his repertoire. Trouble is, we've been spoilt. We've seen so many really good guitars. I mean, I've seen Eric Clapton 2, 3, 4 times. Pete Townsend, Richie Blackmore. So many fantastic guitarists we've seen. It's hard to pick. I mean, Rory Gallagher is way up there, but then we've seen Gary Moore as well. Which one's the best? I think it's subjective. You can't really say there is.
It changes day to day. It's one of those things that changes the day you're in.
Yeah.
Can I throw a hand grenade in there?
Yeah. You can do that.
And just ask you, what about very underrated, but I watch it time and time again. My Guitar Gently Weeps, the George Harrison, the super group on stage with Prince doing.
Oh, Prince, without a doubt, fantastic.
Yeah.
What a guitarist!
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about Hendrix and all that, but no one ever talks about Prince. What a great guitarist!
Yeah.
I mean, that solo he does in that is just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the issue, and this is the debates that we have in the pub all the time. Because if you're going to talk about quality playing of a guitar, you can't have that discussion without Dave Gilmour.
No,
I mean, if you want to hear someone make a guitar cry, I mean, that is just unbelievable. He's such a talented. He's a moving guitarist. He's not hard Rush, Crash. I mean, and then you got just Rush, Alex Leeson. Again, they're all brilliant in their own way.
You just watched, I believe, on Thursday night, Level 42.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who I toured with in some other bands, and he was going right back. He was in Long John Baldry. That's like going right back.
Yeah.
It was a guy called Alan Murphy, and he's no longer with us, God bless him. But he was a lovely fella, and he played in Level 42 for a while. And if you look on YouTube, and if you ever see, he had a certain style, and I used to love watching him play. He wasn't a heavy metal guitarist, but he was he just had a lovely style about the way he played. And like you say, there's just so many of all genres that
Then you can wheel in Mark Knopfler, and you should know what I mean. The list just keeps going. Steve Howe,
Steve Howe, great guitarist.
Yeah,
we've been so blessed, and this is one of the things we always talk about. And you must understand, guys. I was going to say, it's like the history. We've been so blessed to have been alive in this last 40, 50 years and seen so many amazing bands.
And we see things different because Chris has got a musical ear. He plays an instrument. I mean, I can't play a note or nothing. I mean, so I only know what I like and what I hear. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how it's produced, and sort of it's all magic to me. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I don't really want to know. I mean, because maybe that'll take the magic away. But
What about
you guys should sit there and go, he needs to tune his guitar.
Well, when we go to concerts, Chris will be there, and I'll go, "Oh, it's amazing." He said, "Oh, were you struggling? You'd be going out of tune there a little bit."
Really? Yeah.
What about all the guitarists that played in Thin Lizzy?
Yeah.
I think I've seen all, apart from the first one. What's his name? Eric Bell. I think I saw all the guitarists playing there. There was started with Brian Robson. I see him with Brian Robson. That was at the Dome.
Can I just? We'll go on to it, but I must, while I think of it, Brian Robertson.
Yeah, that's it, Robertson.
Brian Robertson. He and Thin Lizzy were rehearsing in John Henry's where I was, and I'd been out on and I came back into the tea bar, and Robbo was there making a cup of tea, and I was going to make a cup of tea. And as I passed into the studio, there was this beautiful girl outside, absolute stunner, blonde hair and everything. And I walked, and I sort of, you do a double take, and I walked in, and I said to Robbo, "All right, Robbo?" And he was like, "Yeah, all right." I said, "Bit of all right out there." She's a bit of all right. He said, "Yeah, I know, it's my wife."
What?
Yeah, so that's yeah. Anyway, carry on.
So,
Brian Robertson.
Yeah, Rob. I saw Brian Robertson. That was in there early. That's the first time I'd ever seen when they started using the radio things. Where Phil Lynott had the bass on the radio pickups. Yeah, I mean that was about. I think that was 77. So it's and then
what a great band! What a great band!
And then Gary Moore. I saw with Gary Moore. Which was sort of more blues, and then Snowy White give them a sort of mellower sort of feel with Snowy White, and then sort of John Sykes at the end, he sort of give them a little boost, really. He sort of, I mean, they were sort of failing. I think Phil Lynnott's health was not good, and he sort of give them a shot in the arm, really, for the life, and made them a little bit heavier again, a heavier sound they had with John.
I loved the music. Phil, we must be getting to near the end of this.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've got a few minutes left before the Zoom stops recording. But regarding the guitarist, I was going to go with Dave Gilmour. I saw the movie which came out, his World Live show, about a month ago. It was filmed in Rome. And that was pretty amazing movie. But then, sort of, as I said earlier, I saw the Zeppelin one on a flight just 2 weeks ago. And that one with Jimmy Page just blew David Gilmour away as far as I was concerned. It was just phenomenal. Yes, we're almost running out of time. And one thing I was going to ask, mobile phones at gigs, what are your what are your views on that? Where people are standing there, they're watching the show or filming or so-called filming on a mobile phone, blocking the view, and they don't really see the band.
No, I agree with it.
Yeah.
And I catch myself doing something similar because you want to kind of record the moment, your own memories sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then you realise you'll actually look at it through, and then you're missing the actual show. So I'll put it down again. See you back.
I mentioned that because we talked about Cardiff, St David's Hall, and I saw Bob Dylan there just 2 years ago, I think it was, in November. All mobile phones were banned.
Right.
They've taken off when you went in. You got them on the way out.
That's the way it used to be, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the show itself, no screens, totally stripped down. It's like it was playing in a cinema. Very basic lighting. It was stunning because you just focus on him and the band.
Because you listen to the music, then you actually listen to the music.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, with all the lights going on, you get distracted, and I mean, I don't mind taking a photo, the odd photo. Yeah, I mean, and we were just talking earlier, saying all the gigs we've been to over the years, we got very, very little photographic evidence of anything we've ever been to. I mean, it's
great shame in some ways.
Well, in the early days, you couldn't take a camera in. You'd be searched. Cameras were not allowed in. You'd get thrown out if you had a camera.
Possibly, I think overall, the front door, the best gig I've probably been to, I think overall for sound quality, vision, overall experience has to be Pink Floyd when they played at Earls Court in 1995.
Right.
And the weird thing about it is I've always said that the sound, vision, the whole experience was just fantastic. One I didn't go to a Rudy, I went with my nephew. And I don't have one single photographic evidence of that at all. The best gig. Fortunately, of course, Pulse, the album, came out with a DVD, and I can sit back and rewatch the whole thing.
Brilliant.
But I don't have one photograph of that at all.
What about you, Rudy? Your best ever show, concert, event?
Most probably Bruce Springsteen. I saw Bruce Springsteen in 1981 on the River Tour, and it was like I was just starting going out with my wife, and it's the first show I took her to, and that was one of those shows where. I mean, I bought the River album. I didn't really get into Bruce Springsteen until that album, really. I mean, I was aware of Born to Run and people were playing it, but I was into other things at that. And I went to that show, and that totally blew me away because it was he'd done about 3 hours. It was in two, and he opened with Born to Run, which is his biggest hit. I mean, nobody ever opens with their biggest hit, do they?
Sure.
I mean, that's the final show. That's the final song for the encore. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
that was an amazing, and the repartee he had with the audience and whatever, and getting people up, and I mean, the band, they all seemed it was just great fun. And also, I'd say Rush, a band we both like Rush. They are always sonically
we
good.
were saying the other day, Rush is probably overall the most consistent, well-rehearsed, well-produced band we've ever seen. And we've seen them, 3 or 4 times or more.
Yeah.
And they're one of these bands who get that balance right with the light show and the screens and the actual
But it's all about the music.
Yeah, it all fits together with them. I mean, it's brilliant.
It's all about the music. That's going to be our subtitle, I think, Russ, from now on. That's what it is. Yeah, from 2 fans' perspectives. Russell, over to you.
Well, I think we have to draw a line under this. It's been good to have you guys on because, we're all fans, really. And
absolutely.
Phil and I and my other colleagues that I've interviewed, we worked in the industry, and sometimes we were saying you're not allowed to be starstruck. You have to be professional and all those things. But in hindsight, it's still enjoy my music, still enjoy my vinyls, still enjoy listening.
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely.
We're all fans, and without fans, it doesn't happen, does it? So I think you definitely earned your right on this podcast. I think we will publish all the bands you have actually seen.
So, now, what I'm going to do now is just give.
The thing is, when you say that, Russ, it doesn't seem to me. It doesn't seem that many. Do you know what I mean? It seems like every day. We could make another podcast on the bands we've missed that we'd like to have seen and not seen. I mean, like you say,
good idea. Yeah.
Somebody like Prince, and I mean, who you think? And you kind of think, why haven't I seen them? You kind of think, why haven't I seen them? Do you know what I mean? And for me, I had that sort of spell up until, mid-80s, and then once you get married and children come along and you've got mortgages and whatever, you don't get the time and you can't travel. You're away or working, you don't get, and now that's all gone. My kids have all left home. I'm catching up again now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to finish off and say, if you're listening and you're an organizer of a pub quiz night, these 2 guys are the ones to sign up for the music section. So it's Chris Mansfield and Rudy Baxter. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. It's only rock and roll.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Rob. Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
It's only rock and roll.
A Phil Blizzard radio production.
Available on Apple, Amazon, Angami, Spotify, Deezer, Google, and all good podcast channels, and also now on YouTube. And if you would like to have a podcast production for your organisation, do get in touch with me. Drop me an email, philblizzardmedia@gmail.com.
A Phil Blizzard radio production.